Good week.
Cheers all.
Cheers, l'chaim.
L'chaim.
Good one.
Nicely inflected. So we've talked.
You f***ing turnip.
Now, Joe.
There's a reason you're doing this.
Do you know?
You're a turnip.
So you don't know that was wrong?
What?
Do you know that? Do you know the nature and quality of your act?
No, you're a turnip, and you want to kill my family.
So Joe would be found NCR.
Right. So
people ask stupid questions about people who are NCR.
Yeah, I know.
This is this episode. Not criminally responsible on account of a mental disorder. You're a f***ing turnip.
Okay,
Or
so
an insanity plea.
to explain your actions and what you're reenacting here, we had a big case, a very controversial case in Canada, because there was a guy on a Greyhound bus.
That's not
on
the
his
only one. We've
way-
had plenty.
Yeah, I know.
Like plenty.
But this particular one stands out.
It's a good one.
And it was like from early 2000s or whatever. It's like around 2006, something like that. And so he was on a Greyhound bus and just had a message from God. And he moved to the back of the bus and attacked with a knife a guy who was sleeping with headphones on, murdered him, severed his head. The bus was stopped. They tried to intervene, other passengers, and then obviously the guy was out of control. So everybody got off the bus, and then he managed to sever the guy's head, and he was cannibalizing the body and all this other stuff.
Horrible, tragic, awful situation.
Terrifying.
Horrible. Terrifying. Horrible to the victim. Horrible to the family of the victim. Horrible.
So thankfully, only one person was injured. But obviously a very horrific thing, including the cannibalism, and the guy was found to be not criminally responsible
on account of mental disorder.
Because of a mental disorder. But the most controversial thing is that after about 7 years of treatment, he was found to be responding really well to treatment. So he was not only allowed out of jail and going into his own home.
Not in jail.
Oh yeah, he wasn't in jail. He was in a treatment
mental
center.
health facility, in a secure facility.
But he was given
He was getting treatment, and then he was granted various privileges over time, and eventually, after a number of years, due to his response to medication, granted an absolute discharge.
Right.
But it was on a gradual, gradated basis. Right. Okay? It didn't happen overnight.
And so obviously the public is outraged because
They were then.
well, they've forgotten about it probably because there's always new outrage material on the internet.
It's been 7 years.
But this is
coming to fore
this
because
is a classic case of why the public gets really upset with not mentally responsible, because they can actually not just get released, when the public thinks they're unsafe, but he got an absolute discharge. So explain that.
Okay,
and you can explain that because you worked in
yes, I was on
area.
the Ontario Review Board dealing with these types of cases for about 19 years and then not reappointed. But leaving that aside, let's frame this, okay? Because we've gotten some inquiries about not criminally responsible cases, and there's been some high-profile cases in the media. Mm-hmm. What does this mean? We've gotten some questions.
Are they getting away with it?
Good point. Mm-hmm. So let's start off first with what the f*** does it mean to be not criminally responsible? So somebody who is alleged with a horrific criminal offense, a homicide.
Severing a head. And eating parts of your body.
And in this case, the person was suffering from a mental disorder, a disease of the mind, like schizophrenia.
That was the case in this one.
Bipolar disorder, anything that rises to the point of a psychosis where they believe their life is at risk. They're so disorganized they can't appreciate the nature and consequences of their act or the moral wrongness of their act. That means that they're not legally liable under the criminal law. So then they are found not criminally responsible, and they go to the mental health system. And they're detained in the mental health system, and they're treated, and they go through a very rigorous, strict, highly secure system to determine their risk. And if their risk is limited because they're responding to treatment, they can be released to the community. That's why we have a civil society.
But correct me if I'm wrong here, Joe. Isn't it right that you kind of step down in terms of levels of supervision and security?
Yes.
And you have to sort of demonstrate that this is no longer necessary nor appropriate in order to sort of get out of the ORB
You don't
system.
have to demonstrate it. Okay, it has to be established that you're not that level of risk. So it's, again, not on the accused, not on the person who is the patient at this point. But this is a very involved, sort of cooperative process where it's about treatment, response, engagement, and risk. And it is a very complex, highly sophisticated process where the Ontario Review Board in Ontario is really adept at this, where the treatment professionals are very adept at it. And the likelihood of these people reoffending is like f***ing infinitesimal.
Well, that's actually the title of the article is offenders deemed not criminally responsible, unlikely to reoffend, say experts.
Right.
And there was another interesting quote saying your chances of being struck by lightning are greater of being struck by lightning than being killed by an NCR person, not criminally responsible person.
Because what we have done in this society is that murder or other offenses that are significant are demonized. And if you are mentally ill or of a sound mind, it doesn't matter. And that's not the truth.
Just to clarify, when you say demonized, it's like, I've actually seen people online saying they'll take... It really screws up the sound when you do that. I've seen people online saying that this is the face of evil, right? So, like, when you say demonized, it's like, of course, murder is a terrible thing. That's like...
It's horrible.
Everyone can kind of agree.
It's bad.
Don't kill people, right?
Yes, there's no doubt about it.
To say is like...
We're not saying murder's not good. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
We are not pro-murder in this.
We're not pro-murder.
But it's the demonization of the people who commit murder. They assume that they have some sort of possession of an evil spirit or of some sort. But, mental illness is...
sadly true. People have disorders that rise to a psychosis where they believe somebody is going to kill them or kill their family or for whatever delusion. What?
You should just pour it instead of holding it while you're talking.
Give me a minute. It's important to understand that these are organic issues. And we have to understand they are organic issues. And frankly, they can be treated. So God forbid, when somebody suffers from this, which is untreated, and they commit the act, doesn't mean later on they can't be treated and at limited risk to the community.
So the legal term, and Liam, you can go on about this for a little bit. The legal term is mens rea.
Correct. So, mens rea. In Latin, that's the Latin term for guilty mind. In a criminal offense, the prosecution must prove beyond a reasonable doubt two essential elements no matter what offense you are discussing. That's the actus reus, the guilty act, the essentially the conduct element. And then, yeah, exactly, stabbing. Now,
I like the psycho thing.
We just passed Halloween, and I was like, Halloween.
No, it's like the most amazing stab that doesn't look like it's actually going to hurt anybody.
Now,
anyway.
And then there's also the mens rea, the guilty mind. What was the mental status of this person while they were committing the guilty act?
Were they aware they're doing something?
Exactly. So, for instance, say I'm holding a knife and I have a seizure.
I'm kind of wrong. Not being aware that you're not committing a criminal act is not necessarily a defense.
No, not necessarily.
Ignorance of the law is not a defense.
Okay,
that's a separate issue.
Separate issue. We are in a not criminally responsible mental disorder episode. Okay, and you may think we're not
touching
disordered
voluntariness
right now, but we're not. Okay, but this is about mentally disordered issues.
No.
Yeah, and whether or not the individual understood the nature of their act.
So what Joe was alluding to.
Define the section, what defense is, and what the section says.
So
I can tell you.
I forget the number of the
Section 16.
Section 16
of the Criminal Code of Canada.
Okay, so if someone, by reason of a disease of the mind, either A, does not understand the nature and quality of their act. So, say, for instance, I think that I am, putting a pizza into the oven. That's what's going through my mind right now by reason of
Now you're making me hungry.
florid psychosis. I'm sorry, Diana. I'm hungry too. But that's what's going through my
But
mind.
we're on intermittent fasting.
But actually, I'm stabbing someone in the chest, then in that case, I'm not understanding the nature and quality of my act. Or I don't understand that my act is wrong. So say for
Morally wrong.
So this
in
guy
Canadian
actually
society.
believed that he was getting instructions from God.
Exactly. And that this is the
Morally or legally wrong in Canadian society. That's actually the test.
yeah, that's it's prototypical Mr. Lee. He thought that the victim in that case, he was being instructed to kill that by God. Ergo, it was not morally wrong. Then in that case, you can be found not criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder.
speak a
But
bit more about-
unsafe to
But hang
society.
on, just define what this case, because it's a really good example. What did he think, and what was the evidence? Just a small outline.
Well, they don't go too much into his claims of what it was he thought he was doing at the time. They just say that he believed that he was being instructed by God.
Right.
And that God was telling him that this person had to die. And
Right.
then he probably doesn't have much recollection of what else was going on in his mind as he was cutting the guy's head off and all this other stuff.
He killed him first by stabbing.
Yeah, he just went into a psychotic state. And he had schizophrenia, as he was diagnosed with later, but it was undiagnosed prior to this. So it's not like...
Undiagnosed, untreated.
So he didn't recognize that he had schizophrenia. He was going about his life thinking that his perceptions and he actually had hallucinations and all this other stuff, but he wasn't aware he was having hallucinations. He believed them to be true.
Brilliant point.
There's been a lot of great activism on behalf of mentally ill people to create a better understanding, and hopefully that can help people understand why NCR, not criminally responsible diagnoses, take place, because we need to have some sympathy for people who actually...
Not sympathy. For a legal exemption for people who are organically disabled from committing offenses because of their disorders. Period.
An NCR finding is effectively the justice system saying that this person needs a hospital, not a prison.
Right.
What if you were driving a car and you suffered a massive heart attack and drove into a pedestrian and killed him?
Well, that's voluntariness.
It's involuntary.
Yeah, but that's not NCR. That's anyway.
No, but stop.
Voluntariness issue.
Dude, get with me. You're so young. You didn't mean to kill the person, right? Mm-hmm. If you're NCR, you believe that I believe you're Satan. Mm-hmm. You're going to kill my family. I have this delusion and I kill you in protection of my family. Frankly, it's involuntary because I'm under the instruction of a higher power because I'm on this disorder. Same thing.
Yeah, you're detached from reality, and so
Right.
you're not making decisions that are...
A heart attack is detached. It's an involuntary act.
Yeah.
This is, in essence, an involuntary act.
Yeah, and so we had actually, and we did a separate podcast on recent decisions in Canada that are actually probably even more concerning, and that is because the person doesn't get detained in a mental institute, where we had a few instances, 3 cases where people were found to be temporarily insane.
Sullivan.
So Solomon,
but
Chan,
that's interesting. Sullivan
and Brown.
Chan.
And so that's upsetting to people because these are individuals who self-intoxicated, and it generally doesn't just involve alcohol. To reach a state of being in a state of delusion, usually they involve drugs. And in all these cases, they had taken some sort of hallucinogen.
No. I think Sullivan
Liam?
himself.
Define what we're talking about, please.
So we are talking about self-induced intoxication, self-induced extreme intoxication akin to automatism. So the cases that we're talking about are Sullivan, Chan, and Brown. Brown out of Alberta, and then Sullivan and Chan out of Ontario. So
You go, dude.
both Chan and Brown involved magic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms. They took them, and normally when one takes mushrooms, you see
Eat
God.
pizza.
Yeah, see God, eat pizza,
You hope to see God.
but generally don't think that your stepmother is an alien and try and kill her, which is tragically what happened in Mr.
Brown
Chan's
actually
case.
attacked a random stranger it was a little bit different.
But Chan,
Because Sullivan and Chan both attacked family members,
Right.
their own parents,
So,
not
Sullivan,
recognizing that they were their own parents.
Sullivan is slightly different in that he tried to overdose on
Still involved
Wellbutrin.
with drug.
Yeah, Wellbutrin though, like something you can get from your
He
doctor.
tried to kill himself.
Yeah, he tried to kill himself. Entered into a bit of a psychotic state and ended up killing someone. Now that's different than an NCR defense.
Yeah,
criminally
I think
responsible
Brown was the
defense.
most difficult because they actually attacked a total stranger. He actually attacked a total stranger. But they were all. The problem that the public has with it is that they're temporarily insane, which meant they didn't even have to go to a clinic or like some sort of like a mental health facility. They served no jail time.
Okay. That's the end result. Stop. What's the legal issue here?
But the legal issue is whether or not somebody can form the intent to understand what they're doing.
So define this, please. Liam?
I would disagree with the framing. With all respect to my friend, I would disagree with Diana's framing because
I just love this language, like my friend.
my friend, my learned friend.
It's to keep things civil.
My brother.
Proper here. All right, let's go.
So Sullivan,
You
Chan,
may
and
be
Brown,
correct. I just
He's right.
Go ahead.
Sullivan,
Quiet.
Chan, and Brown all deal with voluntariness in the sense that a voluntary act. Do I mean to commit the act that I'm doing? So say I'm holding a knife, I have a seizure, I stab someone in the chest, okay? In that case, that's not voluntary. I have no criminal responsibility. That's an element of the actus reus. It's not even part of the mens rea. Now let's distinguish that from someone who is NCRMD, not criminally responsible by reason of mental disorder.
Right.
That person they are voluntarily acting.
They have the intent. They're doing it.
They're mean to do what they're doing. But the thing is, when people talk about an insanity plea, they can sometimes think that, like, oh, this person's getting off just because they're insane. And that's not what it is. It's really about not only having a mental disorder, but having this specific causal relationship between your mental disorder and the alleged criminal offense.
Right.
I just want to make it clear. I wasn't framing it that way. I was telling you how the public frames it.
No, I get it. But Sullivan Chan is interesting. But this is the voluntary consumption of intoxicants, which raises you to the level of automatism, and you commit an offense.
But
can you just
you
can
get
we
to the
just
same-
explain it, please? Explain it.
To back up a little bit, automatism is essentially when the lights are on, but no one's home. So, for instance, say you, and there's actually a pretty important...
It's like sleepwalking.
Well, no, it's not like sleepwalking. It is sleepwalking. That's
Essentially, yeah.
Queen and Stone, right?
Absolutely correct.
There is a case in Canada, actually, where somebody committed a murder while he was sleepwalking.
A couple
And
murders.
sexual assaults. Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Stone was sleepwalking, stabbed his in-laws to death. Yeah. But he was sleepwalking at the time, so automatism, and he got off, in my opinion.
Not got off. Was found not guilty.
Found not
I actually
guilty.
had a friend who had used to have special locks on her door because she actually woke up, outside in her pajamas.
It's
Thankfully,
real.
She slept in pajamas.
These are real psychological states.
She had to have special, door locks so that she couldn't actually figure out how to unlock them while she was sleeping. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's an actual thing.
But that's automatism, and that's, again, it's slightly different from an NCR defense. Because if you're in an automatistic state, you just lack the voluntariness to commit the offense.
So Sullivan and Chan.
Sullivan and Chan. So, and this decision came out from the Supreme Court a couple months ago now. But those individuals took drugs voluntarily. So it's voluntary intoxication, and I won't get into all the history of Davio.
Yeah, don't.
Yeah,
Too confusing.
We've
We'll
already
do that
done
another episode.
on that. Yeah.
But effectively, they're saying that I took these drugs, so I am acting in an involuntary automatistic state. Ergo, you should find me not guilty.
And in one of them, I didn't know I would react this way. Never did this before.
So this legislation is unconstitutional.
Right.
And that's Sullivan and Chan. And we distinguish that from an NCR because with the NCR, you do have the essential elements of the offense, but you also have this specific causal relationship between your mental illness, your disease of the mind, and how you committed the offense. Either you didn't know it was morally wrong or you didn't understand the nature of your act.
So how does that make somebody different? I'm just going to represent what a lot of people I think in the public would say. How does that make somebody different than just being evil?
I think that's actually an interesting point because, for instance, say someone is a psychopath. They lack empathy. That person, they know it's wrong. They know what they're doing.
They don't care.
Exactly. You're still criminally responsible.
And
then.
it's, in a way, a mental illness, right?
No, it's not. It's a personality
So what's the
disorder.
difference between a psychopath?
There's differences between psychopathy and mental illness. Mental illness is generally an organic disorder. So, schizophrenia, delusional disorder, but psychopathy is personality-based. And that is not an NCR defense. You are just an evil, bad person.
Who's aware of what you're doing? That's the difference. Is that a psychopath is aware of what they're doing. They understand.
That's correct.
They understand all of the issues. Whereas a person who's experiencing schizophrenia,
God forbid, somebody who has schizophrenia or bipolar disorder and are in a psychosis, it's not different than anything else. Like, you could have heart disease or diabetes or other issues. It's organic. It's nothing to be shameful of. It happens. And it rises to the level where something happens, which is criminal, but they're not responsible because of that disease. Personality disorders are quite different. Psychopathy is quite different.
they're aware exactly of what they're doing and they choose to
Personality disorders are quite different. They're aware and they still act with full intent.
I mean, there's a reason that Paul Bernardo, for instance, Paul Bernardo was not found NCR, and he's more than likely going to spend the rest of his life in prison.
Paul Bernardo.
No, he will.
Paul Bernardo, just so...
He will spend the rest of his life in prison.
Anyone in Canada knows who this is. Paul Bernardo...
it's a psychopathy issue. He's a psychopath.
Was a Scarborough rapist. He was committing rapes for a long time, getting away with it. And then he escalated to murder. And there was some dispute over... is an infamous case because his partner at the time, Carla Homolka...
Who's a mother with 3 children living a very nice life right now.
Under a different name.
Under a different name. She managed to get a plea deal and all this other stuff. But Paul Bernardo is still incarcerated. And
he will be for the rest of his natural life.
One of the most infamous cases in Canada of
but what's the point here?
Brutal assaults. What's the point? Do you
Put
remember?
it on me.
The point is there's a difference between personality disorder and mental disorder.
Yeah.
These are people who are predisposed to personality disorders. Narcissism, borderline personality, aggressive personality versus things like schizophrenia, bipolar, where they're acting as psychosis, where they are detached from reality. The serial killers, like Paul Bernardo, are not NCR.
No, he was very clever
Period.
in plotting and planning.
He was aware of what he was doing.
Yeah. Whereas the not responsible people actually have no perception of what's actually going on in reality.
Right, so we have to be careful.
And can I just interject with another?
Go ahead. It's your first time. It's your second time on our
my second
podcast.
time on the podcast.
Yeah, go
'cause
ahead.
We're filming
You
this
rock
on
on.
a different date.
Read the comments. People will say Liam should stop interrupting so much.
But again, to look at another Canadian example, let's look at Alex Manassian, who the Toronto van attack. And therein, the argument was made that Mr. Manassian suffered from autism. And it was argued that he was NCR, not criminally responsible, by reason of his autism. Now, Justice Malloy, I think, disagreed. She found that it was a disease of the mind. However, she found that there was not that specific causal relationship that by reason of the disease of the mind, Mr. Manassian didn't understand the nature and quality of his act and didn't understand that it was morally wrong. He understood both of those things. So despite the fact that he suffered from a disease of the mind, he was still found guilty of those offenses in a criminal manner.
Correct. So even if somebody is schizophrenic or suffering from a delusional disorder, that delusion has to be related
Connected
to the act in a way that you are still delusional about what you are doing. And
It's that causal relationship.
correct. Manassian simply had autism. And although it did impact him significantly, his lack of remorse or his lack of regard for people of, whether female or male, did not absolve him of culpability because he knew what he was doing. Period.
So launching ridiculous defenses, including things like autism, low-level autism, whatever the level was.
Autism is simply an issue about your understanding of social
There's
awareness.
high-functional autistic people, right?
Whether low-level, medium-level, or high-level social awareness in relation to autism. These are people who are understanding of certain issues. It doesn't absolve them of criminal responsibility
Right.
because they can still understand the rightfulness or the wrongfulness of their acts.
And launching that kind of defense, saying that he's not responsible due to his autism, undermines, like you said, go back and repeat, undermines the legitimacy when it's really true. When people really have something like schizophrenia or something like that, where they truly could
An
not
organic
appreciate the
that
nature of
robs
their
them
acts.
of the appreciation
Or even knowing
of the nature or
who they were
consequences of their
attacking.
act,
Yeah.
or the moral wrongfulness in Canada of their actions. This was not a good example. I don't want to harp on Manassian. That was not a robust defense.
No.
With all due respect, the defense lawyers were great defense lawyers. I respect them. Bad defense. Leaving that aside,
It's totally different scenario when you're attacking, like we see in Sullivan and Chan. They're attacking
Those are legitimate cases.
family members they didn't even recognize to be their own parents, right? That is a totally different situation.
absolutely correct. We need to explore this in more detail.
And we need to maintain the mens rea element.
It's not just that okay. I know. Stop.
I'm trying to end it right now because
I know,
it's like,
but we have to understand what mental illness is, and what mental and that sometimes, rarely, very rarely, aside from an organic mental illness, not something like autism,
yeah,
but an organic mental illness is separated from a mental illness induced by consumption of intoxicants that rises to psychosis, to commit an act. Those are rare circumstances. We have to be careful to delineate when that is legitimately a defense.
and in all of these cases, it was fairly well agreed upon that there was no way to predict that when they took those intoxicants, those drugs, there was no way for them to predict the state they were going to end up in. It was an unusual.
That's a good point, because they did not know. Had they experimented before,
It's like you can say, oh, if I'm going to drink an entire bottle of, of alcohol, and I know it's going to make me a certain amount of drunk,
Well,
and
that's
then I'll be
Davio.
out of my mind, right?
and I'll be out of my mind, and I
That's
killed
Davio.
a deer
That's
last week,
Davio, yeah.
and I killed a cat last week. This week it may be a human. Yeah, you're right. Not available.
But these individuals took a drug. They had no reason to think they were going to respond to the drug in the way they did.
Good point. There's no evidence to suggest that they knew or would have responded in the way
Or
they
could
did.
have predicted.
Absolutely correct. But this is a fine line. And we need to make it very clear. This is a rare, rare, rare defense. But we need to preserve it.
For the temporarily insane. And thankfully, the Supreme Court made a great decision in that case.